When you start talking about the emotional rules that hold a relationship together, you have to begin with the truth that most people ignore. Love is emotional, yes, but it is not built on emotion alone. Emotions can guide you, inspire you, pull you towards somebody, but they cannot hold two people together by themselves. The real glue comes from understanding how emotions work, how they move, how they shift, and how to treat them with care instead of playing with them like something that doesn't matter. Most relationships fall apart not because people don't love each other, but because they mishandle each other's emotions without even realizing it. They step on feelings they should be protecting. They ignore needs they should be paying attention to. They treat moments that require gentleness with frustration, sarcasm, or ego, and suddenly they wonder why something that felt so good started slipping away. The emotional rules begin with awareness. Knowing that the person you're with isn't just someone you talk to or sleep next to, but someone with a whole world inside them. A world filled with fears, hopes, insecurities, dreams, things they've been through, things they need but don't always know how to say. When you love someone, you don't get to dismiss that world. You don't get to act like your emotions matter more than theirs. You don't get to play the game where you express everything loudly and they're supposed to stay quiet. When you choose someone, you choose their emotional reality too. You choose to understand what triggers them instead of making fun of it. You choose to hear what hurts them instead of calling them too sensitive. You choose to value their feelings even when they feel different from yours. One of the biggest emotional rules in love is simple. Don't make your partner feel unsafe. Unsafe doesn't always mean scared. It means unprotected, unheard, unvalued. When people stop feeling emotionally safe, they stop opening up. They stop sharing their truth. They stop coming to you with their struggles. They shut the door just a little each time you respond with anger instead of understanding, or judgment instead of care, or dismissal instead of support. And once those doors start closing, it gets harder and harder to reopen them. Emotional safety means knowing your partner can be honest without being punished for it, vulnerable without being attacked for it, imperfect without being shamed for it. If you can't provide that, the relationship will always live on a shaky foundation. Another rule is emotional consistency. A lot of people don't realize how damaging inconsistency is. One day you're loving, the next day you're cold. One day you're present, the next day you disappear. One moment you're supportive, the next moment you act like everything they feel is a burden. That roller coaster drains a person's spirit. It makes them feel like they can't rely on you emotionally, which creates doubt, insecurity, and confusion. You can't build something strong while shaking it at the same time. Consistency doesn't mean being perfect. It means showing up with the same heart, the same intentions, the same effort day after day, even when life gets busy, even when things get stressful, even when you're tired. One more emotional rule people forget is listening, not hearing, listening. Listening is about understanding, not responding. Most people listen to reply. They listen just long enough to defend themselves, prove a point, or explain why they're right. But real listening is different. It's leaning into someone's words with the goal of understanding what they feel, not winning an argument. When you make someone feel heard, you make them feel loved. When you make someone feel ignored, you make them feel alone. Yes, even in the same house, even in the same bed. Emotional loneliness is one of the most painful things in the world, and it happens in relationships where people stopped listening a long time ago. Another rule is managing your own emotions before you bring them into the relationship. You can't love someone well if you're always operating from anger, insecurity, jealousy, or unresolved wounds. A relationship can't be the place where you dump everything negative and expect your partner to absorb it. That's emotional pressure, and nobody can carry that forever. You have to learn how to regulate yourself. Take a breath before reacting, think before attacking, calm yourself before projecting. You can't expect someone to feel safe if you explode whenever you're frustrated or shut down whenever you're overwhelmed. Emotional maturity is not optional in love, it is necessary. Then there's the rule of emotional presence. Being physically present is the easy part. Being emotionally present is where most people struggle. That means paying attention, not just scrolling next to them, not just being in the room, but being mentally and emotionally available. Asking how they really feel, noticing when something is off, checking in when they seem distant, touching them with affection, encouraging them when they feel small, showing interest in their day. You cannot build closeness without presence, because emotional connection comes from energy, attention, and intention. And there's a rule: a lot of people don't want to admit your partner is not you. They don't feel the way you feel. They don't express things the way you express them. They don't think the way you think. And that's not a flaw. That's humanity. Too many people ruin relationships trying to force their partner to feel, think, or react exactly like them. But love requires understanding differences, not eliminating them. You learn your partner's emotional language the same way you would learn a new language. You pay attention, you communicate, you practice, you adjust. You don't get mad because they're different. You learn how to love them in the way they understand. Then there's the emotional rule of appreciation. People need to feel appreciated. It fuels them emotionally. When someone gives, tries, sacrifices, supports, and shows love, and you act like it's nothing, over time they will stop giving. Love dries up when it goes unappreciated. A simple thank you, a compliment, a moment of acknowledgement, a smile, a small gesture. These things seem small to you, but they mean the world to the person receiving them. Emotional appreciation is one of the most important rules because it makes people feel seen, valued, and loved. There's also the rule of emotional honesty. Not honesty that hurts just to hurt, but honesty that builds trust. Saying what you feel instead of hiding it. Expressing your needs instead of expecting your partner to read your mind. Telling the truth with love instead of silence that leads to resentment. Emotional honesty is what keeps small problems from becoming big ones and big problems from becoming endings. The emotional rules of love are not complicated, but they require awareness, empathy, and effort. Relationships strengthen or weaken based on how we handle each other's hearts. When you understand that love is emotional work, not emotional guessing, you stop leaving things to chance. You start showing up with intention. You start speaking with care. You start loving with understanding. And that is how you make love something strong, something peaceful, something lasting. Respect, communication, and consistency are often talked about like they're simple, like anybody can do them, like they're just common sense. But if they were really that simple, relationships wouldn't be breaking left and right. People wouldn't be confused, hurt, or feeling alone in a relationship where love is present but stability is missing. These three things, respect, communication, and consistency, are not small pieces of love. They are the structure holding everything together. Without them, emotions fade, trust weakens, and connection slowly dissolves until two people end up feeling like strangers living under the same roof. Respect is the first non-negotiable because it shapes the way you treat someone even when you're upset, frustrated, or not getting what you want. Respect is not about agreeing all the time. It's about how you speak to each other, how you look at each other, how you handle conflict, how you honor each other's feelings and boundaries. A lot of people don't realize they lose respect for their partner quietly over time. It doesn't happen with one big argument. It happens with the small things they think don't matter, rolling eyes at each other, talking down to each other, making jokes that cut too deep, comparing your partner to someone else, refusing to take accountability, keeping score instead of keeping peace. Every time you disrespect your partner, even in small ways, you tear down a piece of the relationship you're trying so hard to build. Respect also means understanding that your partner has a life before you, feelings that aren't always logical, triggers that need patience, boundaries you must honor, and dreams that deserve support. Too many relationships fall apart because one person tries to dominate the other instead of understanding them. Real respect is recognizing that your partner is your equal, not your possession, not your project, not your competition. Respect means treating their heart like something valuable instead of something ordinary. It means speaking to them like they matter, not just when you're in a good mood, but especially when you're not. Then comes communication, which is usually the thing people struggle with the most. Talking is easy, communicating is not. Communicating means expressing your truth without attacking, listening without interrupting, understanding without judging, and responding without trying to win. It means showing your feelings even when it makes you uncomfortable. It means saying the hard things instead of hoping your partner magically figures them out. Most relationships suffer not because people don't care, but because they don't communicate until the damage is already done. Communication is not about dumping every emotion on your partner. It's about sharing what matters in a way that brings you closer. It means saying, "This hurt me," Instead of acting cold for 3 days, it means asking for reassurance instead of pretending you don't need it. It means saying, I'm overwhelmed. Instead of exploding out of nowhere, it means being mature enough to talk through disagreements instead of using silent treatment, sarcasm, guilt, or emotional withdrawal to punish the other person. When communication is healthy, arguments become conversations, misunderstandings become clarity, and distance becomes connection again. But communication only works if both people are willing to be honest. Not brutal honesty that destroys, but healthy honesty that builds. The truth spoken with love brings peace. Lies, silence, and avoidance create cracks that eventually break the whole foundation. And you can't ask for communication from your partner if you're not willing to communicate yourself. You can't ask them to open up when you shut down. You can't expect emotional vulnerability from someone you don't make feel safe enough to share. The last piece, consistency, is what turns love from a feeling into something reliable. Consistency means you don't change depending on the day. You don't switch from affectionate to distant. You don't give effort only when you're in the mood. You don't love someone loudly one day and quietly the next. Consistency is what gives your partner emotional stability. It makes them trust you. It makes them relax around you. It makes them feel secure instead of anxious, valued instead of confused, connected instead of unsure. People underestimate how damaging inconsistency is. When you show love sometimes and neglect other times, your partner never knows what version of you they're getting. They never know if today is the day you show up or the day you disappear emotionally. That unpredictability drains people. It makes them question themselves. It makes them lose confidence in the relationship. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means effort, steady, intentional effort. It means showing up even after arguments, still choosing each other, even during difficult moments, still putting in the work even when life gets stressful. Consistency also means keeping your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you make a promise, honor it. If you commit, follow through. Relationships break when people's actions don't match their words. Love is not built on big gestures. It's built on daily consistency. The way you greet each other, the time you make for each other, the small acts of care, the check-ins, the reliability, the stability. These things matter more than any romantic gift or dramatic apology. Respect, communication, and consistency all work together. You can't communicate well without respect. You can't stay consistent if you don't care about the relationship. You can't build trust without all three. They create a rhythm in the relationship, a sense of safety, a sense of understanding, a sense of partnership. They keep love alive long after the butterflies fade. They make two people feel like a team instead of opponents. They protect the relationship from unnecessary conflict, from emotional distance, from misunderstandings that grow into resentment. When these three things are present, love becomes peaceful instead of stressful. It becomes comforting instead of confusing. It becomes strong instead of fragile. Respect builds the foundation. Communication builds the connection. Consistency builds the security. And when you combine them, you create a relationship that feels solid, healthy, and worth fighting for. When people talk about love, they often imagine it's this magical thing that just happens, something that floats into your life like a soft breeze and stays as long as you keep smiling. But real love doesn't work like that. Real love has expectations. Real love has standards. Real love has rules that protect it, strengthen it, and keep it from falling apart in the first storm. And one of the biggest rules that people forget, one of the rules they break the most, is the discipline of showing up the same way every single day. Not just on good days, not just on romantic days, not just when everything is smooth, but even when you're tired, frustrated, stressed, or tempted to shut down. Because the truth is love is built on consistency long before it's built on passion. Anybody can be sweet on a good day. Anybody can talk nicely when everything is fine. But the real test is how you show up in the moments when you're tested. Because love is not measured by how loud you say, I love you, but by how carefully you act when you're not in the mood to be loving. That's where people get it wrong. They think emotions are the engine of a relationship, when really it's discipline. Emotions come and go, but discipline holds the line. Discipline keeps you from saying something you can't take back. Discipline keeps you from walking away during a misunderstanding that could have been solved with one calm conversation. Discipline stops you from turning a small issue into a full-blown war. Love grows in the soil of discipline more than it grows in the sunshine of sweet feelings. And let's be real. Every couple has disagreements. Every couple has moments where one person says something sideways, or someone feels unheard, or life gets heavy. But what separates couples who stay strong from couples who fall apart is what they choose to do in those moments. Discipline means you pause before reacting. Discipline means you breathe before exploding. Discipline means you remind yourself, this is my person. This is not the enemy. We're on the same team. It's amazing how many relationships would survive if people would just give themselves a minute to calm down before responding. But most folks don't. They fire back. They escalate. They try to win the moment and lose the relationship in the process. Discipline protects you from that trap, and discipline works both ways. It's not just about controlling what you say. It's also about controlling what you think. Because sometimes the moment your partner does something wrong, your mind starts writing the whole narrative. They don't care. They don't listen. They never change. I knew it. Your brain will take one small mistake and turn it into a whole belief system if you let it. That's why discipline is required. Discipline stops you from creating stories that aren't true. Discipline forces you to step back and ask, what's actually happening here? Is this a pattern, or is this just a moment? Am I reacting to them, or to something old that I haven't healed yet? When you start asking those questions instead of jumping to conclusions, your whole relationship shifts. Love also has the rule of intentional effort. People think love thrives automatically, but love dries up when you stop watering it. Love weakens when you stop paying attention. People don't fall out of love, they stop nurturing it. And it's not always because they don't care. Sometimes life gets busy, responsibilities pile up, routines form, and effort gets replaced with autopilot. That's why discipline in love means reminding yourself daily, I still have to choose them. Not because you're forced to, but because choosing them is part of honoring the relationship. Effort doesn't mean expensive gifts or grand gestures. Effort is listening fully when they talk. Effort is checking in even when you're tired. Effort is making them feel valued, safe, heard, desired, respected. Effort is the maintenance work that keeps love from rusting. Discipline also shows up in the way you protect your relationship from outside noise. Friends, family, co-workers, social media. Everybody's got opinions. Everybody wants to tell you what to do, what they would tolerate, what they wouldn't accept, what they think your partner meant. But love has a rule: protect your home. Discipline means you don't let outsiders plant seeds of doubt, jealousy, or insecurity. Discipline means you don't run and tell 20 people your business every time something goes wrong. Discipline means you build your relationship from the inside, not from the opinions of people who aren't living your life. Because the moment you start letting outsiders influence your marriage or your relationship, you lose control over your own story. And once you lose that, it's hard to get it back. Discipline also requires accountability. And accountability means you're willing to say, my bad, I shouldn't have done that. I'll do better. Some people can't apologize because they think it makes them look weak. They think admitting they were wrong means giving up power. But accountability is not weakness, it's strength. It means you care more about the relationship than about your own pride. It means you want to move forward, not stay stuck in an argument that never needed to last that long. Love can survive almost anything if both people are willing to apologize when necessary. But nothing can survive when two people refuse to take responsibility for their actions. Another rule of love is emotional patience. People grow at different speeds. People heal differently. People learn differently. The person you're with might be carrying wounds you know nothing about. Maybe they weren't shown love growing up. Maybe they didn't see healthy communication in their household. Maybe they learned silence instead of vulnerability. Patience means you don't punish them for what they never learned. Patience means you allow them time to grow, time to open up, time to become better. You don't force it, you don't rush it, you don't demand perfection. You allow room for development. And in that space, love grows not because it's perfect, but because it's safe. Discipline in love also requires gratitude. Because the moment you stop appreciating your partner, you start taking them for granted. You stop noticing the small things they do. You stop recognizing their effort. Gratitude keeps your heart open. Gratitude keeps you soft. Gratitude reminds you why you chose them in the first place. And when gratitude is present, disappointment doesn't grow as fast because you're not just focused on what they didn't do. You're aware of everything they do right. And finally, discipline teaches you to love them on purpose, not just on instinct. Anybody can love when everything is cute and easy. But love that lasts is love you work for. Love you protect. Love you choose again and again. Love that follows rules not because it's restricted, but because it's honored. Love that stays strong not because it's flawless, but because it's disciplined enough to weather the flaws together.